Yashodhanandana Prajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Vishwapatram Super Vajikatariya Sutri His Divine Grace AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Ki Is Confounder Charish Prabhupada Ki Antikati Vaishnava Ki Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sikh Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shamakula Radha Kumari Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Gangamai Ki Munmai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulsi Devi Ki, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki, Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Swami Bhaktivinoda Ki, Nita Gaur Premanandi, all glory to Srimad devotees, all glory to Srimad devotees, all glory to Srimad devotees, all glory to Shri Guru Ingarang, all glory to Shri Prabhupada. Can you move the camera back a little bit, just so it's not like right up in my face? Yeah, I can see you guys better. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatam Vyasam.
Devim Saraswati Vyasam.
Tato Jayamudirayat.
Sodaya Mudita.
Astu Parashu Bhadreshu.
Rastaprashu Bhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Utamashloke.
Bhagavati Utamashloke.
Bhaktir Bhagavati Nashtiki.
Bhakti Bhagavati Nashti.
For reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Shri Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance and classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service unto the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And living service unto personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as the lovable child. Alright, so today, guys, we're going to be talking about Canto 4, Chapter 23, Text 31. Prithvi Maharaj is going back home, back to Godhead. Actually, he's already back home, back to Godhead. But actually, today we start something very special. I think it's what you have at the end of every story in the Bhagavatam. Well, not every one, but a lot of them. Today we're going to start with the Palashruti, and that's going to go on for a few verses. So, Yaridam Sumahapunyam
Yaridam Sumahapunyam.
Shradaya Vahitapate
Shradaya Vahitapate.
Shravayat Srinuyad Vapi
Shravayat Srinuyad Vapi.
Saprito Paravimriyat
Saprito Paravimriyat.
Yaidam sumahapunyam
Yaidam sumahapunyam
Shradaya Vahitabate
Shravaya
Shravaya Srinuyadvapi Saprito Padavimyat Yadinam Sumahapunyam Shradaya Vahitapate Shravaya Srinuyadvapi Saprito Padavimyat. Alright, questions?
Yaidam sumahapunyam
Yaidam sumahapunyam
Shradaya Vaidapate Shravaya Srimulagapi Sakrita Pandavimya
Yaidam sumahapunyam
Yaidam sumahapunyam
Shradaya Vaidapate
Sadhaya
Avayashtriyadapi
Sarayachtinuyagapi
Sakrito Paravidya
Sakritoparahiyat Yadam sumahapunyam
Yaidam sumahapunyam
Sadhaya Vaditapate
Shradaya Vaidapate
Sarayachtinuyagapi
Shravaya Srimulagapi
Sakritoparahiyat
Sakrito Paravidya.
Alright, word for word. Yaha,
Yaha,
anyone.
anyone.
Idam,
Idam,
this. Sumuhat,
Sumahat
very great. Punyam,
Punyam,
pious.
pious.
Shradaya,
Shradaya,
with great faith.
great faith.
Avahitaha,
Avita,
with great attention.
Great attention.
Pate, reads. Shravayat,
Shravaya,
explains. Srinuyat, hears. Ba, or. Api, certainly. Saha, that person. Prito, of King Prithu. Padavim, situation. Yat, attains. All right. Listen to this very nice translation. It's very encouraging, actually. Any person who describes the great characteristics of King Prithu with faith and determination, whether he reads or hears of them himself or helps others to hear of them, is certain to attain the very planet which Maharaj Prithu attained. In other words, such a person also returns home to the Vaikuntha planets, back to Godhead. Jai! Who likes this one? This isn't all there is. All right, let's repeat it. Let's repeat it so we can remember. Any person.
any person.
Any person.
Any person.
That means it doesn't matter who you are. Who describes the great characteristics of King Prithu.
Describes the great characteristics of King Prithu.
But it has to be with great faith and determination.
Great faith and determination.
Whether he reads
Whether he reads
or hears
or hears
of them himself,
of them himself,
or he helps others to hear of them,
or helps others to hear them,
is certain to obtain
is certain to attain
the very planets
the very end
which Maharaj Prithu attained.
Maharaj Prithu.
In other words,
In other words,
such a person
such person
also returns home
also returns home
to the Vaikuntha planets,
to Vaikuntha planets,
back to Godhead.
back to Godhead.
All right. How long have we been on this pastime? A long time, right?
See you all there.
Yeah, we're all going. Vaikuntha Express coming for us all. Mother's always got a good class tomorrow, so she can get on the get on the train. All right. Purport. In the execution of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu is especially stressed. This means that bhakti, or devotional service, begins by hearing and chanting about Vishnu. When we speak of Vishnu, we also refer to that which relates to Vishnu. In the Shiva Purana, Lord Shiva recommends Vishnu worship to be the topmost worship, and better than Vishnu worship is worship of the Vaishnava or anything related to Vishnu. The fact is explained herein that hearing and chanting about a Vaishnava is as good as hearing and chanting about Vishnu. For Maitreya has explained that anyone who hears about Prithu Maharaj with attention also attains the planet which Maharaj Prithu attained. There is no duality between Vishnu and the Vaishnava, and this is called Avyaya-jnana. A Vaishnava is as important as Vishnu, and therefore Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wrote in his Guru Astika, we can all say this one together because we know it, Shaksha Daridana Samashra Sashir Utasya Tava Tattva Sasri Kintu Prabhuya Priya Vitasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda. It's hard to say it without singing it. Yeah, I want to say. Yeah. Anyway, the spiritual master is honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and is followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hari. The Supreme Vaishnava is the spiritual master. He is not different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is said that sometimes Lord Chaitanya used to chant the names of the gopis. Some of the Lord's students tried to advise him to chant the name of Krishna instead. But upon hearing this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very angry with his students. The controversy on this subject reached a point that after this incident, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to take sannyas because he was not taken very seriously in the Grihastha ashram. The point is that since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted the names of the gopis, worship of the gopis or the devotees of the Lord is as good as devotional service rendered directly to the Lord. It is also stated by the Lord himself that devotional service to his devotees is better than service offered directly to him. Sometimes the Sahajiya class of devotees are interested only in Krishna's personal pastimes, to the exclusion of the activities of the devotees. This type of devotee is not on a very high level. One who sees the devotee and the Lord on the same level has further progressed. Jai. Oh my goodness, I'm Shakanajana Shlaka, Chakshu, Manitamina, Azmashi, Kudrina, She Chitangama Vishtam, Sapatam, Yelaputta, Swayam, Pakiramayam, Dilati, Swapiratikam, Vandeham, Shiguru, Shita, Parkamalam, Shiru, Vaishnam Shah, Shi Rupam, Sagaratam, Sahagan, Ragaktam, Vitam, Tam, Sajivam, Sadvetam, Savaditam, Prajana Sahitam, Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakami Dansa Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jikapase Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhikanta Namostute Tata Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Harike Pancha Kalpatru Vishta Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patisrampa Maybe all Vaishnavi on Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Sari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Kirtan, would you hand culture up, please? Thank you so much. All right, so as I previously stated, would you stand by? Well, as I previously stated, This text we are beginning the Palashruti. So the Bhagavatam, it's meant for cutting out all sorts of cheating religion, all sorts of sacrifices for material prosperity that you often see in the Vedas. Krishna explains to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita that people often get bewildered by the flowery language of the Vedas, because a lot of the Vedas deal with how to get what people want materially, and really at the end of the day, that's why a lot of people came to the material world, because they wanted to try to enjoy separately from Krishna. So they have desires, they have things that they want. So there's sections of the Vedas that tell people how to get that. Well, the Bhagavatam comes along, and it's giving the highest goal. It's saying, ultimately, whatever you obtain, even if you get all this wealth, get beautiful women or beautiful men, if that's your desire, you get, house by the sea, you get to travel the world. One devotee said once to Srila Prabhupada, I want to travel the world. And Prabhupada said, everywhere you go, you will see some mountain, some sea, some water, everywhere. So better just to travel with the Sankirtan devotees, because Prabhupada had this vision that wherever we go, it's going to be the same. In the same way, the Bhagavatam has this, it's giving us this ultimate vision that no matter what you obtain in this material world, higher planets, lower planets, you still have to deal with birth, old age, and disease. The Bhagavatam is actually telling you these are our real problems. And we can see, even on this planet, we have countries where there's higher standards of enjoyment and countries where enjoying materially is more difficult. Those that have been to India, you stay there for a long time, you notice, maybe you notice Kirtan April, material enjoyment is a lot more difficult in India. I mean, if one wants to enjoy materially, there's difficulties one has to face. I mean, just to pay your electric bill for your house can take all day sometimes. Your electricity is constantly going off. Your internet quite often is not working well. Your infrastructures are falling in, and it might take a month before somebody says they'll come fix it. I mean, you're dealing with all months for them to get there. Yeah. I mean, things like I was there for a year, and when I came back to America, I was looking for a place to stay, and a devotee offered me a room in their apartment. And the first question I asked was, "Does it have hot water?" Because I had gotten so used to being in India. You go to these other countries, hot water is considered an amenity. Even in Mexico, at some of the hotels, they'll have hot water as one of the things that they offer, to like try to draw you in and get you to stay there. And even then, quite often, the hot water, if you want it, before you take a shower, you need to go flip a switch, and it's got to warm up. And you will get about 3 minutes of hot water. 3 minutes max. So if you have hair, if you are a woman, you will choose between, do I want to wet my hair and body with hot water, or do I want to rinse off my hair and body with hot water? So the point that I'm trying to make was, in this planet, we see that there's, in America, that's a given. You have to have hot water. I mean, if you don't have hot water in the house, they might come take your kids away from you. I mean, it's like that. So there's a higher standard of enjoyment or expectation here. So in the same way, if we can see that, we can see even on higher planets, there's this higher standard of enjoyment than what you get here. People live for longer. They're more beautiful, more attractive. And you have to have qualifications to go there, just like you have to have certain qualifications to get here in America. If you try to come here to America from somewhere like Bangladesh, they're not just going to let you in. You have to have, okay, well, do you have property in your country? Do you have this, that? If you come into America from another first world country, they're going to let you in a little bit more easily. So in the same way with the higher planets, you have to have these qualifications. The Vedas give you these qualifications to get there. But the Bhagavatam is saying that ultimately it doesn't matter. Because you're going to have these three things: birth, disease, or four things: birth, disease, old age, and death. And that's going to hinder whatever enjoyment that you're going to experience on these planets. So ultimately, no matter how much enjoyment is there, no matter how much you want to go after, you got these things you got to deal with that's going to stop you from being able to enjoy it to the max. So at the end of the day, it's not worth it. Just like dangling something in front of you saying, come get it, and you're reaching for it, you can never actually grab it because you're being impeded. And for those who have been very sick, you understand how that stops you from being able to enjoy things in this world. You can no longer enjoy eating, you can't enjoy sleeping, even just basic things. Old age comes, and you have this type of suffering there. You're no longer the target audience for the world. You know, what everybody markets to, unless they're trying to sell you Insure or Life Alerts. But think about it, like I remember one time somebody wrote into MTV and said, why do you guys no longer play music videos? And the guy said, because your age group is no longer our demographic. And their current demographic, they don't want to watch music videos on TV. They got YouTube. There's no point in us having, so it's not profitable. So the point that I'm trying to make is when you get older, the world doesn't market to you in the same way like it does when you're young. When you're in your teens, you're in your early 20s. They're trying to grab you. You're at the height of your beauty. And then, let's see. And then birth comes. Birth is very traumatic. You never see a baby come out laughing. They come out screaming. And also, people don't think about this, but when babies are in the womb, they're breathing in water. So you go from breathing in water to breathing air. Sometimes that can be an adjustment. I remember when my son was born, he had a little bit of an adjustment going from breathing in the womb to breathing in the air. It's a little bit of a traumatic experience, that in itself. Plus, just being squeezed out of this canal. And being in the womb, it's like being in a room where you can't really sit down and you can't really stand up. You're in this dark place for months. It's complete torture. So you have these things. And so the Bhagavatam saying, kick out all this. But that can be a little bit intense for some people. Some people that want to get some type of enjoyment. And so therefore, the Bhagavatam, in the same way like we give medicine to like a child, and the child doesn't want to take their medicine. I remember when I was a kid, they tried to give me Robitussin, which is the nastiest cough syrup in existence. I don't know if any of you had Robitussin. It's disgusting. It's awful. I would like fight having to take this medicine. So like I remember my mom would do stuff to my medicine, make it a little sweeter, make it like not so bad to like swallow. So I would take it. So Bhagavatam, knowing that people have come here to try to enjoy, it gives a little bit of, sweetness at the end of these pastimes. Because we've been hearing some heavy philosophy. This is the benefit that you get from hearing these pastimes. In the same way with Ekadasi. Paramahamsas, they don't need any benefit to follow Ekadasi. They're going to do it to please Krishna. But there are people in the material world that want material benefits. Therefore, you got the Ekadasi book. Okay, you follow this Ekadasi, then you get relieved from the sins of 5 lifetimes. Your parents get liberated. You get a beautiful spouse and many children. And so anyway, so the beginning of our Palashruti here is that one who reads, hears of pastimes of Prince Maharaj or helps others hear of them is promised to go back home, back to Godhead. You hear of them with great faith and determination, and you help others to do so. And then we also got, if one hears the characteristics of Prince Maharaj and is a Brahmana, he becomes perfectly qualified with Brahminical powers. If he is a Kshatriya, he becomes king of the world. If he is a Vaishya, he becomes the master of all other Vaishyas and many animals. If he is a Sudra, he becomes the topmost devotee. Actually, in Kali Yuga, Vyasa explained that, being in the Sudra, being kind of lower. That's the best ashram to be in because it's all about serving others. So it helps one with bhakti. So you can see how the Sudra becomes the topmost devotee. Next, it does not matter whether one is a man or woman. Anyone who with great respect hears the narrations of Prithvi Maharaj will become the father of many children. If he was without children, he will become the richest man. If he was without money. Also, one who hears this narration 3 times will become very reputable if he is not recognized in society. And he will become a great scholar if he is illiterate. In other words, hearing of the narrations of Prithvi Maharaj is so auspicious that it drives away all bad luck. By hearing the narration of Prithvi Maharaj, one can become great, increase his duration of life, gain promotion to the heavenly planets, and counteract the contaminations of this age of Kali. In addition, one can promote the causes of religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Therefore, from all sides, it is advisable for a materialistic person who is interested in such things to read and hear the narrations of the life and character of Prithvi Maharaj. If a king who is desirous of attaining victory and ruling power chants the narration of Maharaj Prithvi 3 times before going forth on his chariot, all subordinate kings will automatically render all kinds of taxes upon him, as they rendered them unto Maharaj Prithvi simply upon his order. And then that might be the end. Oh, wait, one more. A pure devotee who is executing the different processes of devotional service may be situated in a transcendental position, being completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness. But even he, while discharging devotional service, must hear, read, and induce others to hear about the character and life of Maharaj. Well, actually, that's not one, but anyway, it's a good one. All right, so I read all this just to show you guys that whether you're a pure devotee or a materialistic person, it's advised that one hear about the activities of Prithvi Maharaj, and they help others to also hear about Prithvi Maharaj as well. There's benefit for everybody, no matter what level you're at. Because by hearing these pastimes, by hearing about the devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what tends to happen when you're hearing Bhagavatam? You what? You feel inspired. Yeah. What else do you feel when you read Bhagavatam? Empowerment. What do you feel when you read Bhagavatam, Yamuna? Or hear Bhagavatam? Inspired. She gets sleepy. Yeah, well, Bhagavatam is also, in one sense, it's also, one person made the joke one time that Bhagavatam is considered the cure for insomnia. Inspired. But when you systematically go through Bhagavatam, who in here has systematically, or is currently systematically going through Srimad Bhagavatam? You've read it, you're going through it. I've been through it twice. And you two probably already know it by heart from previous lifetime. Okay, so what happens when one systematically goes through Srimad Bhagavatam and you're hearing the narrations about Krishna and his devotees? These things happen, one starts to feel inspired. One starts to want to kind of be like these devotees. One starts to develop attraction to Krishna because you're engaging in this process of Shravana. And hearing about Krishna, you see how attractive he is and how wonderful he is. In these first 9 cantos, they prepare you for the 10th canto. And when you hit the 10th canto, you get to Krishna's pastimes. And you see, wow, Krishna is amazing. Like there's no other person like Krishna in the whole entire world. Why would I ever want to be here in this material world? Have any of you ever had a glimpse of that by reading Krishna's pastimes? You're like, wow, Krishna is like so amazing. Why am I here? Why am I not there? So this is what happens when you read about how sweet Krishna, how sweet his devotees are. And then also, one thing you really get by reading Srimad Bhagavatam too is how much Krishna loves his devotees. And Krishna ultimately, he loves all of us and wants all of us to be with him. But because there are people that are not really desiring that right now, Krishna's giving these narrations to help us remember. And he's teaching us. Krishna, he almost always teaches us through his devotees. And this is kind of what the Bhagavatam does. So I jotted down a few notes about some of the benefits we get from hearing about the devotees of the Lord. Because Prabhupada one of Prabhupada's main points in this purport is that hearing about the devotee of the Lord is as good as hearing about the personality of God himself. And it's an important point because, sometimes we can have this desire, oh, I want to serve Krishna, I want to be with Krishna. But Krishna, he ultimately tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita that one who says he is my devotee is not my devotee. One who says he is a devotee of my devotees is my devotee. So we can be, striving to serve Krishna directly, even going on the altar, but if we can't see Krishna in the heart of the devotees, if we're not giving respect to the devotees, Krishna's not going to be very happy with them. And we're not going to get the same bliss from our service that we would be if we're offering respect to the Vaishnavas, if we're hearing about the devotees, of the Lord. It's very natural. We can see even in this material world, when we appreciate somebody's child or somebody that's very dear to someone. Like if you appreciate somebody's child, then the parent is automatically, they're very happy with you. They like you, especially like if you do something good for their child and their child is happy, the parent smiles at you, or they're very nice to you. Sometimes they want to bring you to their house, have lunch, whatever. I've experienced this. So because Krishna's devotees are very dear to him, and we serve the devotees of Krishna, Krishna unleashes his mercy on us. But also there's many other things that we learn from hearing of the devotees of the Lord. And I'll just speak a few things that I realized, and then I want to hear from you guys too. But the number one thing is that when we hear about the pastimes of the Lord's devotees, we see how we should live in this world. A lot of this pastime of Prithvi Maharaj, we see that he's acting as the king, right? And he's not just king of a country, but he's king of the whole entire world. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, nowadays, like one person has a hard time running one country. And Prithvi Maharaj was in charge of the whole entire world. And so that was a big responsibility. But what was Prithvi Maharaj doing? How was he, what do you remember? How was he managing his affairs? How was he helping the citizens? Was he just hanging out in his kingdom? Was he like the Muslim, who was saying Chalna, the one with Santa Goswami, was he out conquering other lands? Trying to exploit people? What did he do? Well, first he gave his citizens instructions, right? About how to protect. And then he also as well. So he had saintly people come and instruct them also how to protect their lives. How to protect their lives and how to do their duty. What is the ultimate goal of life? So from this pastime, we can learn that an actual leader has compassion for the people underneath them. Prithvi Maharaj is showing that a devotee, no matter what situation they are in life, they do that duty perfectly, but they also help others do their duty as well and come back to Godhead. So Prithvi Maharaj, he was a devotee, but he was also, these two things he did perfectly together. And the world was very happy. His citizens were very happy. His administration was going well. He wasn't spending all the money and getting everybody in debt. This country is $34 trillion in debt. But he was helping everybody. So we see how to live. And we also see how we should behave. For example, in the pastime with with Daksha and with Shiva. When Daksha insulted Lord Shiva responded to this insult, not by insulting Daksha back, but he got up and he left. But Lord Shiva's followers, rightly so, they got angry. And Sati, she also got very upset that her husband was offended because her husband is a great devotee. And so we see that Sati ultimately, she gave up her life. Not that we should give up our lives, but it's been an extreme example. But we see from this example from Lord Shiva that we should tolerate all offenses to ourselves, but we should get very upset when a devotee of the Lord is offended. And it's one thing, one could write this out, like Rupa Goswami, he writes that out in the Nectar of Instruction. But it really hits home when we see it in a pastime, when we see it actually play out. Like, okay, yeah, I get it. Because we learn best through stories, especially in Kali Yuga, especially the lower Vardas, the Sudras and below, learn through stories. History philosophy is very difficult for us. Number two, we see what real devotion looks like in the pastime of Sudama Brahmana. He was very devoted to Krishna, but he never wanted to ask Krishna for anything. Even though he was totally poor, he only had like one clod. He didn't really have enough to feed himself or his wife. But yet, that didn't discourage him from his devotional practice. He wasn't like, okay, oh Krishna, why are you not taking care of me? Why are you not maintaining me? He was totally happy in this situation, to the point that maybe he was a little bit proud of his renunciation. That's there as well. But we can also see in this example of Sudama Brahmana that the pure devotee doesn't actually want anything from the Lord. They don't want this business stuff from the Lord. But then also we can see how the Lord, at the end of the day, ultimately, he takes care of his devotees. But we can see just how great the devotee of the Lord is, that no matter what situation they're in, they don't abandon their devotional service. We get that from the pastimes of Dalit, other pastimes as well. But number two, we see what real devotion looks like. Number three, we see what real surrender also looks like as well. Like in the 8th canto, when Bali Maharaj was told by his spiritual master, don't give Vamanadev 3 paces of land. For those of you listening online who might not know, the Lord appeared to Bali Maharaj in the form of a dwarf one time. And Bali Maharaj was giving in charity. He was this very great king. And when Vamanadev approached him for his charity, the king asked, what would you like? What can I give you? Vamanadev asked for 3 paces of land. And then the king says, why do you only want 3 paces? I could give you my kingdom. I could give you a planet. I could give you whatever you like, because he was king of the not only the world, but the heavenly planets and everything at that time. So he had a lot to give. And anyway, Vamanadev, we learn also a very important lesson in that pastime that Vamanadev tells him. If I can't be happy with 3 paces of land, I won't be happy with the whole entire world. So, Bali Maharaj's spiritual master told him, Shukracharya told him, don't give these 3 paces of land to Vamanadev, because he's Vishnu, he'll cheat you. But Shukracharya, he was thinking, how will I be maintained if Bali gives everything to Vamanadev? Because he was being maintained by his disciple. So, but Bali Maharaj, even when it gets his own guru, and surrendered everything ultimately to Vamanadev. And we see that even after he surrendered everything, what happened? He got arrested. He got bound up by ropes. And then that part of the pastime, you're thinking, Krishna, come on, man. Bali just went against his guru. That's a big deal. He just gave you everything, and now you're arresting. Come on. That's a little bit harsh. But no, what's seen through this pastime is the greatness of Bali Maharaj to keep giving everything. And then also, we learn from this pastime how even when we're giving to Krishna, there can still be like something inside of us, something that's not quite right with our devotions. That's not quite pure. Because it's also described that even though Bali Maharaj was giving everything to Krishna after he got arrested, one of the things was that he was thinking that this is mine to give. Yeah. And so Krishna took away any ounce of pride that he had. But then also we see, because what happens, Bali Maharaj's wife comes and prays on his behalf, and then his grandfather Prahlad Maharaj comes. So then we also see how we need the mercy of the devotees to make advancement spiritually. So many lessons in that pastime. And then, but the main one is we see what surrender looks like. Number 4, we see how to become detached in life. Even in situations where we are attached. Yeah, like Dhruva Maharaj, who wanted the kingdom greater than his grandfather, Lord Brahma. But when he went to the forest, he was totally identifying as a Kshatriya. When he led his spiritual master on his way to the forest, he told his spiritual master Narayana Muni told him, don't worry about these things, just go home. You're a little boy. You can do austerities later. And he was speaking to him, giving him medical instructions, how he should just let this go. Dhruva Maharaj says, what you're saying to me is very good, but I'm a Kshatriya. Your words don't pierce my heart. I want the kingdom anyway. So Dhruva Maharaj, he's showing the example of someone in the material world who wants something. We know, maybe sometimes we know the devotional instructions are very good, but still we have some sort of material desire lingering within our heart. So with this pastime of Dhruva Maharaj, we learned that whether you're attached or detached, you should take to the process of bhakti, because ultimately that will lead you to the goal. So Dhruva Maharaj, by chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, he got to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. And then when he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, what happened? Yeah, everything was satisfied. He couldn't even speak. Lord Vishnu had to take his conch shell so he could talk. It's not about it. And all of his desires were fulfilled. And ultimately he became pure devotee by the process. So what do we learn about this pastime? By following the Yuga Dharma, even if one has all material desire or has no material desire, one should take to the process of devotional service. So we can learn from this pastime. Dhruva Maharaj was chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. What are we chanting? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And by doing this process, we also become free of material desires if we are doing it, trying to avoid the 10 eclipses and taking it up with all seriousness. But even if Prabhupada also said one time that even if one chants it jokingly or mockingly, they get benefit as well. The holy name is that powerful. So it's an encouragement to us. Number 5, we realize the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Brahma, we know he's a great devotee. He's the engineer of our whole universe. But in the 2nd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Virat Rupa is described. And then after the Virat Rupa is described, in the 3rd chapter, it is described that Lord Brahma, by meditating on this Virat Rupa, he regained his lost consciousness and was able to recreate the universe again as it was before. So we're seeing here that even Lord Brahma sometimes forgets what he should do. In the material world, we're forgetful of our original position. We have something that we're also supposed to be doing with Krishna. Some job, some service, some pastime. Serving Krishna as some friend. Serving Krishna as some in conjugal wrath, serving Krishna as some parent, whatever it may be. We have some in neutrality. We have some also service that we're supposed to be doing, that we're not doing. And we can see that sometimes Lord Brahma, he forgets what he's supposed to be doing. But this is the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it's described there, that Krishna doesn't really forget anyone. And there's always a process by which one can revive that which they have forgotten. Krishna says, Sarvasha Chamhali Sanagishtom Tasmatar Gyanam Apohanam Cha. He is the source of all knowledge, all remembrance, and all forgetfulness. So because Krishna is the source of all remembrance, he's always giving a process for the living entity to remember what they should be doing, to revive that lost consciousness, to remember what their eternal truth is, to remember what their relationship with Krishna is. And then also we take inspiration too. Because we can see even Lord Brahma, sometimes he can't remember, he doesn't know what he's supposed to do. And then Krishna comes and Krishna helps him. And also we see how we should treat other devotees. I'm always very inspired by the first canto. When the sages of Naimisharanya, they're approaching Sutta Goswami, and how sweet they are with Sutta Goswami, and how humble they are, asking him questions. Please, tell us of this Srimad Bhagavatam. Tell us of this conversation that you heard with Maharaj Parikshit and Shukadeva Goswami, and how they receive him. They give him a nice sitting place and everything. We also see in the pastime with Yudhishthira, with Vidura comes back, how Yudhishthira very nicely treats him. And also the Srimad Bhagavatam gives a lot of stories about how we should treat devotees. But the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it goes into that a little bit more. You see the very sweet, very loving exchanges of the devotees. You see the mercy of the devotees. So that's also, that book is even more filled with pastimes of the Lord's devotees. And number 7, we see how to correct ourselves, how a devotee corrects themselves, how one should correct themselves when they mess up. Just like when Lord Brahma stole all the cowherd boys from Krishna in this pastime. And then he put them all somewhere, and then later he comes back and Krishna, he's expanded himself with all the cowherd boys and whatnot. And then Lord Brahma ultimately realizes his mistake of trying to play a little joke on Krishna. And he comes down and he very humbly, he asks Krishna for his forgiveness. The same thing with Indra, with Govardhan Hill. We see that, devotees, devotees sometimes, they can be forgetful. You can get a little bit puffed up sometimes, especially if you have some power. But we see how we should behave, when we mess up, when we make a mistake to the Lord or to other devotees. And we see how Indra, ultimately, he realizes he's made a mistake. So what does he do? He doesn't just blow it off. He doesn't just make an excuse. He doesn't just say, oh, well, I got puffed up, whatever, go on. But he actually comes and he asks Krishna for forgiveness, and he puts the Sravi cow in front of him. And then also, we see how we should treat other devotees, when we make a mistake. Ultimately, Daksha came and he asked forgiveness from Lord Shiva. We see with the pastime of Jagya and Marai that when they offended Lord Nityananda, ultimately, they bowed down and they asked Lord Nityananda, please forgive me, I've offended you. So everything we need to know in devotional service, we learn from the devotees of the Lord. So devotees of the Lord are very, 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 very important, and they're very dear to Krishna. And so Krishna uses his devotees to teach us things. A lot of our lessons, a lot of what we should do and should not do, it comes from devotees. And so Prabhupada concludes with how the Supreme Vaishnava is a spiritual master. And he's not different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the spiritual master is described as being the captain of the ship in the material world. So he's the captain. And the spiritual master has an important role because he's taking these instructions in the Vedas and he's looking at the disciple. And he's telling the disciple, okay, this is how you should engage in devotional service. Because he's knowing the disciple's condition. He's knowing the disciple's propensities. There are so many instructions in the books. And sometimes not all the instructions can be followed at once, or not everything applies to everyone in the exact same way. Just like Prabhupada, one time he told one Sannyasi disciple, you stay here and manage, and then told another Sannyasi disciple, Sannyasi means preach, you go preach everywhere. So the spiritual master has an important service because he's telling the disciple, okay, this is how you should please Krishna, this is how you should engage in bhakti. And also, spiritual master is sacrificing gallons of blood to help the disciple go back to Godhead. You know, he's putting up with a lot of the disciples' nonsense, putting up with all the conditionings and things like that, and yet he's giving his mercy, just like a very loving father, or mother, if you're maybe your shiksha is a lady or whatever, just like that. So for that reason, because the spiritual master, they're taking all risk to help others go back to Godhead. Taking someone's karma is not a small thing. It's actually a big thing. You can get sick, you can get ill, you have to suffer a little bit, but the spiritual master is doing that to help others go back to Godhead. And when one helps others go back to Godhead, we understand that they're very dear to Krishna as well. So, devotees of the Lord should never be neglected. Main thing we can get from this purport is that we shouldn't just think, oh, I'm going to approach Krishna directly. But we see, no, we approach Krishna through his devotees. We learn through the devotees of the Lord. This is the process Krishna has given us. It's said in the spiritual world, because Prabhupada concludes this purport with talking about the Sahajias and saying how they sometimes want to, approach Krishna directly. They might think the pastimes of Prithu Maharaj are just basic. They're not for more advanced devotees. We should just think about these pastimes of Radha and Krishna. But in the spiritual world, the gopis that are enjoying the most? The Manjaris, yes. And so the Manjari gopis, what is their service? To serve the Sakis. So actually, this is how spiritual life works. When one desires to be servant of the servant of the servant, they actually enjoy more than one who's directly with Krishna himself. And even Radharani, sometimes there are pastimes with her where she's bringing someone, to enjoy with Krishna instead of herself. I once heard a very nice Radhasmi lecture one year where it was talking about, if you really want to please Radharani, if you really want to glorify Radharani, then you help others come to Krishna, because that's what Radharani wants to do. Even though she's the topmost devotee, she's saying, Krishna, look at that person, that's a nice devotee. Look at that person, that's a great devotee. So, Prabhupada is saying here that hearing about the devotees of the Lord is just as good as hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Because we can see by further analysis that hearing about the devotees of the Lord, we learn about the Lord himself, but we also learn how to be a devotee for ourselves. So with that, I will conclude. All right, what are your realizations?
Most of the time, the problem is not, it's an observation I've seemed to have, that most of the time the problem is not refusing to take up Krishna consciousness with all seriousness. It's taking up Krishna consciousness with all seriousness, but also doing other things with all seriousness. That's the problem, It's not that, I'm taking Krishna consciousness super seriously, but I'm also trying to fulfill my sense gratification with all seriousness too.
Yeah.
That's what, or I'm endeavoring for, material profit, endeavoring for adoration, I'm endeavoring for, some material facility with all seriousness.
Yeah.
With endeavoring for Krishna consciousness with all seriousness. So Dhruva Maharaj, although he had a material desire, he was exclusively devoted to Krishna. But if and that's the akama sarvakama va moksha kama udaradi, that, like such a person, no matter where you're at, just give it all to Krishna. But then if you think, I'm going to give it all to Krishna and give it all to trying to fulfill my own sense desires without Krishna, then you find yourself in difficulty.
Yeah, I was in like a question and answer session with this disciple Srila Prabhupada, Pramanda Rasi, and I asked her a question similar to like what you just brought up about, well, you really want Krishna, but also like sometimes Like, we really want Krishna, but then we also go after some material desire with all seriousness as well. And she explained that in this stage of anartha-nivritti, it's like that. Sometimes you go after Krishna with all seriousness, and you go after, you're unsteady in this state. You go after some material desire with all seriousness. But the thing that usually happens is that because you're also going after Krishna with all seriousness, when you're going after whatever material desire with all seriousness, you realize it doesn't really make you happy, and then you go back to Krishna. And then after some time, you'll stop going after material desires with all seriousness, because you'll eventually learn your lesson. And so, especially in the beginning stages of anartha-nivritti, she was explaining that it'll be like that. You can waver unless you're on you come to Krishna consciousness from a previous life on a higher platform, where you're ready to give up all that. But yeah, that's part of the purification that will happen, because Maya is very strong, and but the process at the same time, it's also very purifying. So when one is in that moment where they're going after, okay, I really want this, I'm going after it. Eventually, you're going to go back to Krishna because you know too much. You know too much to fully stay in material life. So, yeah, that's what she explained. Yeah. All right. So, anything else? Any other realizations on this first, guys? What did you realize about Prince Maharaj? Yeah.
I think just like how great of a personality he was. I mean, he went through great lengths to do the right in all aspects. He took instructions from higher authorities, but he would also like fight for his citizens. Like when he had to go to Bhumi Devi and threaten her to be able to produce vegetables and stuff for his society. And then he went on to endeavor directly for Krishna. And his wife was just as amazing and decided to join Sati, which isn't a light thing to do, just let yourself burn like that. So I think just seeing how highly elevated Maharaj Prithu was and dedicated.
Yeah, that's also, thank you, Romina, also a very good point. Like when he was king of the world, he went after Bhumi Devi, he was the head guy and he had to be the head guy, but we see how at the same time, when the four Kumaras came, he offered great respect. And he like, no, they're greater than me. Another very good aspect of the Maharaj. See, why did you say that before? All of you have nice realizations. Come on, guys. All right. I think they're bringing out breakfast. Dr. Raj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki.